In theory, a BMX should be easy to maintain. They have a basic design, few parts to go wrong, and an ability to take a hell of a beating. Either way, if you're new to BMX or been riding for a few years, there are some standard maintenance principles that should be used to keep your steed running smoothly. So here I will cover some of the basic matters of contention that are most common. An obvious rule is to make sure that your nuts and bolts are tight. You don't want your wheels falling off, or even worse, having an accident and getting hurt. One really annoying niggle is when there's play in the headset. You can check this by rocking the front wheel and bars back and forth. If there is, it's easy to sort out. Loosen the stem bolts on the steerer tube and tighten the headset until it shakes no more. Be careful not to over tighten, as you can put the bearings under undue stress. Make sure the wheel is straight and retighten the stem to the steerer tube. Another mistake to avoid is doing up the stem bolts in the wrong order, as this can strip the bars. Tightening the bolts diagonal to each other will ensure that the stem does up evenly, stopping the bars from coming loose. Make sure you keep the torque even as you go. Crank squeak is common, especially if, like me, you've bought a complete bike. Often, whoever built the bike forgot to grease the crank spindle. This is what makes that annoying squeak sound, which tends to develop after the cranks have been used under stress. Undo the rear wheel and unhook the chain from the sprocket. Undo the bolts on the cranks and it should pull off easy. If it doesn't, try giving it a whack or some lubricant. One bit of good news is that there's no need for a crank puller on a BMX. Grease the spindle and repeat on the opposite side of the bike. Finish off by putting the cranks back on and tightening everything up. This should sort the issue. When putting the wheel back on, it can be a problem tensioning the chain. Grab a tool such as a large spanner handle and wedge it in between the tyre and the frame. Use it as a lever to create some tension and tighten up the wheel nut on the drive side. If the chain is too tight, this can generate undue stress and prematurely break it. If this happens, ensure you loosen the nut to create some slack and then retighten once it's right. Do up the wheel nut on the other side, making sure the rim sits nicely between the brake pads. You can push the wheel into the right position if needed, then do up the wheel nut to hold it in place. Suffering from squealing brakes? First off, clean your rims with a non-oil based cleaner such as water or alcohol. Don't use WD-40 as it may stop the squeal but it won't stop the bike, and that would be silly. Next, adjust the brake pad toe-in. This means that you want to set the pads at an angle so the trailing edge of the pad hits the rim first. Be careful to make sure that the pad does not hit the tyre. Take your time with this as it may take a few goes. With all the hard-hitting abuse that BMX has taken their lifetime, it's quite likely that they'll need a wheel trude at some point, most likely the rear one. To prevent this in the first place, check that all the spokes are tight by sticking a pen in the spokes and listening if they're all the same pitch, like this one. Listen out for any that sound odd, and that spoke will probably need tightening. If your wheel is already bent, try to find the buckle. I tend to leave the wheel attached to the bike and use the brake pads as a gauge. If the buckle is on the left hand side of the wheel, check the spokes on the right hand side, as they will usually be loose. Use the spoke nipple tool to make small adjustments. Be careful not to over twist them, as it's very easy to worsen the buckle by mistake. In this case, take it to your local bike shop who will sort it out with a proper wheel truing tool. So there's some basic tips to keep you busy. If you can think of any other niggling issues, let me know in the comments and maybe I'll cover it in a future video. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.